a Noxer. Stand on the scorching pavement of Al Marsa Street in Dubai Marina on any given afternoon. Look up, past the roaring supercars, past the gleaming yachts. A 66-story monument of glass and steel pierces the desert sky. Its lower floors are still choked in industrial scaffolding, the international code for a project that is profoundly unfinished. The name emblazoned on the facade isn't a developer. It's an ultra-luxury British automotive icon, Aston Martin, a brand synonymous with million-dollar precision engineering and hyper-disciplined excellence. Now look at the base of that very same building. Look closely at the structural columns of the multi-level parking garage. Look at the jagged, tearing cracks. If you are watching this channel for the first time, hit subscribe. Every video we make is about a mega structure that should not exist in its current state, yet does, unresolved, while the billionaires responsible remain completely untouched. This is the single clearest case of structural betrayal we have ever uncovered. When the Aston Martin Residences Dubai Marina launched, it wasn't just a real estate play. It was a financial phenomenon. The pitch was sheer, unadulterated tropical excess brought to the Arabian Gulf. A vertical playground for the global elite, where units commanded between $2 million and an eye-watering $50 million for the multi-level triplex penthouse. On paper, it was one of the most successful luxury launches in Dubai history, instantly pulling in over $1 billion in pre-sales. High-net-worth expats from Europe, Russia, and the UK wired massive deposits before a single spade of desert sand was even moved. They thought they were buying a bulletproof piece of automotive engineering perfection. They were dead wrong. Within months of the 2022 handover, the illusion shattered. The tower isn't just leaking, it is structurally failing. And as the cracks widen, the British automotive giant has retreated into a chilling, legally precise silence. Turn the cameras on. Let's look at the data. A Noxer, VO. To understand how a billion-dollar tower begins to fail, you have to look at the timeline and the brutal physics of building on reclaimed desert land. The engineering timeline began with absolute euphoria. When ground broke on the Dubai Marina plot, ground investigation reports cleared the site for a massive 66-story dead load. But Dubai's coastal geology is a nightmare of hyperporous marine sand and shallow, highly saline groundwater. To anchor a skyscraper, here engineers must drive hundreds of heavy concrete piles deep into the bedrock, sealing them against aggressive saltwater corrosion. By 2022, construction wrapped. The keys were handed over and the cash cleared. Then, the desert heat struck. In Dubai, summer temperatures routinely breach 45 degrees Celsius. This extreme ambient heat causes massive thermal expansion in steel and glass, placing immense structural stress on the building's outer envelope. Within months, the first catastrophic flaw emerged. Total facade fatigue. The ceiling membranes failed. When the rare but violent winter downpours hit the coast, water didn't just leak, it pressurized, blowing past the structural glazing and flooding multi-million-dollar apartments. Residents watched in horror as stagnant water pooled inside their walls, triggering rapid, hazardous mold growth in a sealed, air-conditioned environment. But water intrusion was just a symptom. The real crisis was developing deep underground. Structural surveys commissioned by panicked owners revealed a terrifying reality: differential settlement. The tower was sinking unevenly into the coastal sand. In standard engineering, a building settles uniformly as the soil compresses under its weight. But here, one side of the tower was compressing the underlying strata faster than the other. The result? Immense, unscheduled shear stresses tearing through the lower levels. Walk into the parking garage today, and the damage is terrifyingly visible. These aren't cosmetic hairline fractures from curing concrete. These are structural shear cracks slicing through load-bearing columns. The concrete is physically splitting under the twisting weight of the sinking tower above it. The billionaire playground is actively grinding against its own foundations. Announcer, VO. As the structural reports leaked, terrified buyers looked to the one name they trusted for answers. The name on the contract. The name on the lobby. Aston Martin. But the response from the British luxury icon was a cold, calculated, and legally precise wall of silence. To understand why, you have to look past the marketing glare and examine the predatory corporate parallel that governs the luxury real estate industry. This is the ultimate branding illusion. Aston Martin Lagonda did not build this tower. They did not engineer the foundations. They did not pour the concrete. And they did not calculate the soil load-bearing capacity on the marina waterfront. They simply licensed their trademark. The actual developer was a local corporate vehicle operating under a joint venture. They paid millions in licensing fees and royalties to Aston Martin just to lease the brand's prestige. The automotive designers styled the leather in the elevators and curated the lobby marble. But the legal structure was explicitly engineered to ensure Aston Martin carried zero construction liability. When buyers signed contracts worth tens of millions of dollars, their legal recourse was tied entirely to the developer, not the billionaire car manufacturer. This exact corporate blueprint is running rampant across Dubai's ultra-luxury landscape. Look at the skyline, the Porsche-designed tower, the Armani residences, the Cavalli Casa. In every single case, the global brand sells a high-octane feeling of elite quality, takes their massive licensing cut, and walks away. The developer captures a staggering brand premium, inflating property prices by up to 40%. While the unsuspecting buyer inherits all the structural risk, the fine print explicitly states that the brand name is not a warranty of structural engineering. But fine print is completely ignored when the billboard promises automotive perfection. Now, the local developer is heavily insulated behind layers of offshore corporate shells, leaving the buyers trapped in a sinking asset. While the brand's lawyers confidently point to the ironclad liability exemptions in their licensing agreements. The name isn't a guarantee of quality, it's a shield. Announcer, VO. Step inside the grand, marble-clad lobby, and the true cost of this corporate illusion becomes devastatingly personal. The glossy marketing promised an elite sanctuary, but today, the atmosphere inside the tower is defined by paranoia and financial ruin. Consider the case of Michael, a British tech entrepreneur who wired $4 million of his life savings to secure a high-floor apartment overlooking the harbor. He bought into the illusion of mechanical perfection. Today, his walls are stained with dampness, and the sound of his air conditioning is drowned out by the constant, ominous creaking of a building under immense structural stress. Then there is Elena, a European logistics executive who purchased a 3-bedroom unit for her family. When the structural shear cracks tore through her assigned parking bays below, she hired an independent structural engineer. The private report she received was so alarming that she refuses to let her children walk through the lower levels of the garage. These high-net-worth residents are now trapped in a gold-plated cage. Real estate in Dubai is highly volatile, and a luxury asset is only worth what the market is willing to pay. The moment photographs of the cracked structural columns and reports of the differential settlement leaked to local real estate groups, the value of the building cratered. A $4 million apartment in a tower locked in active engineering disputes is fundamentally unsellable. To walk away means realizing a catastrophic multi-million-dollar loss. So, the residents are fighting back. A coalition of owners has launched a massive, complex lawsuit against the developer, alleging severe construction defects, cutting corners on waterproofing membranes, and breach of contract. They are demanding immediate fund allocation for structural underpinning, a radical engineering process to stabilize the sinking foundation piles. But legal warfare in the Gulf is a grueling, slow-motion marathon. The developer's legal team has completely weaponized the system, aggressively disputing the independent engineering data. They claim the fractures are merely standard operational settling and accuse the residents of fabricating a crisis. Experts predict this courtroom gridlock will drag on until at least 2028. In the meantime, the bills keep piling up, the cash reserves are burning, and the owners are left living inside a multi-million-dollar structural gamble. Annexer V. The ultimate tragedy of the Aston Martin residences isn't just the millions lost. It is the terrifying blueprint it provides for the rest of Dubai's vertical frontier as the legal war drags toward 2028. The engineering reality remains unchanged. Underpinning a 66-story occupied skyscraper sitting on waterlogged sand is an existential challenge. If the differential settlement does not stabilize on its own, Structural engineers warn that the stresses could eventually compromise the tower's primary load-bearing frame. The most likely, cynical outcome? The cracks will be cosmetically patched with epoxy's injections. The lawsuits will settle for pennies on the dollar behind closed doors. And the building will exist in a permanent state of managed imperfection. But the warning signs here point to a much larger systemic crisis. Following recent global high-rise scares, municipal authorities have dramatically tightened inspection regimes for megastructures built on reclaimed land. Yet, hundreds of luxury towers across the region are facing the exact same compounding threats: extreme heat expansion, fracturing the outer glazing, aggressive marine salinity eating away at underground concrete piles, and foundations shifting on unstable soil. At the absolute peak of the tower sits the $50 million triplex penthouse. Its private rooftop pool is full, its panoramic glass looks out over the Arabian Gulf, and yet it stands as a ghost town, an empty monument to unchecked corporate greed. Walk back down to Al Marsa Street. Look up one last time. The heavy scaffolding remains firmly in place, casting long shadows over the iconic British logo. The car company has moved on to its next licensing deal. The developers are protected by ironclad corporate structures, and the buyers are left alone in the desert heat, holding the keys to a billion-dollar illusion that is slowly, irreversibly sinking into the sand.